Welcome back to part 3 of LarryBoy and the Sinister Snow Day. I hope you enjoy. When all of these parts are finished, I will be putting up one full video of the whole book. So if you'd like to wait, feel free. Otherwise, stick around and enjoy. Chapter 7, The Ice Plot Thickens.
After all, I'm a mature elementary school kid. I have no more need for schooling.
Junior Asparagus stood in the middle of the clubhouse to make his announcement. Laura Carrot, Percy P., and Renee Blueberry applauded.
Me too, said Laura. I'm sure I've learned all there is to know. At least all that I need to know.
Me too,
said Percy.
I've learned lots.
That's learned, corrected Laura.
I already know how to speak French and English,
said Renee, an exchange student from France. She liked to remind others that she was bilingual.
That's more than some teachers. And I know both English and Pig Latin,
Percy offered.
Pig Latin isn't really a language,
said Renee.
Ite, isse, ote,
Percy replied.
We should make a pact,
said Junior.
No more school.
Oui,
agreed Renee.
Yes,
said Percy.
Yeah,
Laura chimed in. Except
what?
Everyone turned to look at Laura.
Except,
she said.
Won't we get into trouble?
Oh, right,
said Junior.
I hadn't thought about that. Does anybody have any other ideas?
Suddenly, there was a knock at the clubhouse door.
Come in,
said Junior. The door opened. The 3 Snow Peas, Avalanche, Frostbite, and Snowflake, stepped into the clubhouse.
Hello,
said one of the Snow Peas.
my name is Frostbite. These are my brothers, Avalanche and Snowflake.
Hello,
said Junior.
We aren't supposed to talk with strangers,
said Laura.
Oh, okay,
said Snowflake. He turned and walked toward the door, but Avalanche stopped him.
We'll be going,
said Frostbite.
but first, we wanted to tell you kids something.
What's that?
asked Junior.
Yeah, what's that?
asked Snowflake.
We couldn't help overhearing what you were talking about.
Said Frostbite.
About not wanting to go to school.
Yeah, said Avalanche. We heard you wished there was a way to get out of going to school without getting into trouble.
We tried to be polite and not listen,
said Snowflake.
but it was hard not to hear while we were crouching outside your window.
Avalanche gave Snowflake a sharp nudge.
Ow,
said the Snow Pea.
what was that for?
Anyway,
said Frostbite, quickly changing the subject.
what if we told you that there is a way to get out of going to school without getting into trouble? What would you say to that?
Wow,
said Percy.
for real?
No school and no trouble?
Asked Laura suspiciously.
I don't believe it.
Believe it, said Avalanche. In fact, your parents will be the ones to tell you to stay home.
No way!
Whispered Junior.
But how?
You on a snow day, right?
Asked Frostbite mischievously.
Well, we know how you can create your own snow day, and you don't have to wait for winter.
All you have to do, said Avalanche, is promise not to tell anyone about it. The kids looked at each other.
What do you think, Junior?
Asked Renee.
I don't know.
Said Junior, looking quite concerned.
It sounds too good to be true.
But it couldn't hurt to listen to their idea, could it?
Asked Percy hopefully.
Come on, Junior,
Said Laura, nudging her friend.
a snow day in September.
Okay,
Said Junior.
we'll listen, but no promises.
Of course not.
Said Frostbite.
Now gather around and remember, it's a secret.
The kids formed a tight circle around Frostbite. They oohed and awed as they heard the plan, except for Snowflake, who didn't get it. Chapter 8. Back at the Bumble.
Is it dangerous?
Vicky asked. She stood in front of Bob's desk in the editor's office of the Daily Bumble.
It's not dangerous,
Bob said.
but it is an important assignment, Vicky.
I was hoping for a dangerous assignment,
Said Vicky.
All my latest assignments have been a little boring.
If my information is correct,
said the editor.
Bumbleberg won't be boring for long.
Just then there was a knock at the door. Larry, the janitor, stuck his head in.
Excuse me,
Said Larry.
I need to clean the ceiling tiles. If you have to,
Said Bob. Larry entered the room. He attached a squeegee to the end of a long pole and began to wipe the ceiling tiles. Water dripped from his squeegee onto Bob's desk.
As I was saying,
Bob continued frantically, moving his papers this way and that to avoid the drips.
there is a new supervillain on the loose. His name is Iceberg. Iceberg, really?
Asked Larry.
Really?
Said Bob, as a drop of water splattered onto his head.
Could you be a little more careful with that squeegee?
Sure, said Larry.
I've heard of him, said Vicky. His dad was a supervillain back in the days when Bok Choy protected Bumbleberg.
That's right.
Said Bob.
Iceberg has been causing trouble with his love of all things cold.
He disrupted the big game at the salad bowl by creating a hailstorm. And in South Pimento, he froze the mayor's duck pond, turning it into a skating rink.
Those poor ducks,
Sighed Vicky.
No kidding.
Said Bob.
Can you imagine how hard it was to find skates that fit webbed feet? So what's the Iceberg up to now?
Asked the photographer.
There's a rumor,
Said Bob.
that he plans to hit Bumbleberg next.
Oh, that is a big story,
Said Vicky.
I'm on it.
Larry was hanging on to every word. In fact, he was listening so carefully that he wasn't watching where he was washing. Before he knew it, the ceiling fan snagged his squeegee, and he was lifted into the air.
Help!
Shouted Larry as he circled the room. Look out! Shouted Vicky as she ducked in rhythm with the fan blades.
Get down from there!
Shouted Bob. But Larry only spun around faster and faster. He knocked over the books on Bob's bookshelf. He knocked over Bob's lamp. Then he knocked over Bob.
Ouch!
Moaned Bob.
Larry? Sorry!
Said Larry.
Click!
Larry's spinning slowed to a stop. Vicky had turned off the fan.
You okay, boss?
She asked Bob.
Yeah,
Bob said. Although I can't say the same for our janitor. Vicky turned toward Larry, who was still clinging to the fan, suspended in midair. The janitor giggled.
I haven't been this dizzy since I put my overalls in the washer.
He said.
Why would that make you dizzy?
Asked Vicky.
I was still wearing them. Are you going to come down from there?
Asked Bob.
I don't know.
Said Larry.
Are you mad?
Yes, said Bob.
Then I think I'll stay up here a while. Suit yourself,
Said Bob.
I'll leave you two alone,
Said Vicky, quickly leaving the room. Chapter 9. Trouble Underfoot When It Rains. Clunk! Frostbite had just attached a huge metal cylinder to the ceiling of the sewer pipe. He could reach the ceiling because he was standing on top of Avalanche, who was standing on top of Snowflake.
There. That's the last mini hoo-ah we needed to put into place,
Frostbite announced.
What are mini hoo-has anyway?
Asked Snowflake.
These metal gadgets we have been attaching to the ceiling. What do you think?
Asked Frostbite.
Now set us down.
Snowflake looked up at the ceiling to study the large cylinder.
You're leaning back too far,
Shouted Frostbite. Be careful! Demanded Avalanche. The two snow peas were leaning perilously to the left. Snowflake shifted his weight. Now his two friends were leaning perilously to the right. Snowflake shifted again. Splash! All three tumbled into the messy sewer water. Yuck! Cried the peas.
I just spent the whole day putting these gadgets into place,
Groaned Frostbite.
and now I'm tired and wet. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I was meaning to ask about that.
Said Snowflake.
Why did we put all these mini hoo-ahs in the sewer under the streets of Bumbleberg anyway?
Listen, Freezebrain.
Said Frostbite not so nicely.
Each mini hoo-ah is attached to the boss's quack machine by these pipes. So when the boss throws the switch, the quack, K-W-A-C-K, will fill up each mini hoo-ah with frisbees. Got it?
Got it.
Said Snowflake, but his face revealed that he really didn't. Don't worry, Snowflake, said Avalanche. You'll understand soon enough.
That is, if the kids do their part,
Yeah,
said Frostbite.
it's up to the kids now.
And Rains. It was almost midnight. Junior was lying in his bed, staring at the clock. As the second hand approached 12, he whispered,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Junior jumped out of bed and ran to the door of his bedroom. He carefully pulled the door open and listened. No sounds could be heard from the hallway.
I sure hope Mom and Dad are asleep.
He whispered to himself. Junior snuck out the door and hopped quietly down the hall, stopping outside his parents' room to listen. The loud sound made Junior jump. Were his parents awake? Shh. Junior continued to listen. It was the sound of snoring. Junior sighed in relief. His parents were definitely asleep. Junior continued down the hall and into the bathroom, quietly closing the door behind him.
First the tub.
Junior said to himself. He moved to the tub and put the stopper into the drain. Then he turned on the water. Next, Junior moved to the sink. He put a stopper into the sink drain and turned on the water there too. Quickly hopping back to the door, he opened it and listened. The only sound was a not-so-soft snoring coming from his parents' room. Junior swiftly moved down the hall and ducked back into his bedroom. He closed his door and hopped into the bed.
Woo,
He sighed. I wonder where the others are doing. And Rains. Down the street from Junior's house, a similar scene was being played out. Laura had just turned on the water at her kitchen sink when her brother peeked around the corner.
I got the bathroom going,
Said Lenny.
Good job.
Said Laura, and they headed back upstairs. And pores. Piercy P. lived right around the corner from Laura Carrot. Returning from his bathroom, he hopped back into bed. Then he looked out the window just in time to see the sprinklers on his neighbor's lawn come on. He could see Renee Blueberry as she dashed from the lawn back to her front door. Percy smiled and snuggled down into his bed as he thought about all his other friends turning on the faucets in the neighborhood too. Everything was going according to plan. Chapter 10. Where's an ark when you need one? Early the next morning, Archibald gently nudged Larry, who was in bed, fast asleep. He was snoring loudly.
Master Larry,
Said Archibald.
please wake up.
I know the answer.
He shouted as he sat up.
I wasn't sleeping.
Master Larry, it's me.
Said Archibald.
Archie?
Said Larry.
Why didn't you say so? I thought I was in trouble again.
You aren't in trouble,
Assured his butler.
but Bumbleberg is, and they need a superhero right now.
They do?
Said Larry, getting excited.
I am that hero!
Yes, you are.
Archibald agreed. He held out the LarryBoy suit, freshly cleaned and ironed, as Larry hopped out of bed and dashed behind the changing screen.
What seems to be the trouble?
He asked.
During the night, someone turned on every faucet in Bumbleberg. The whole town is flooded.
Oh,
Larry said, poking his head around the corner.
then Bubblyberg doesn't really need a superhero. It sounds like it needs a plumber.
Perhaps,
Archibald admitted.
but if this was an accident, but Chief Croswell suspects foul play.
Ah, yes.
Said LarryBoy.
This sounds just like the work of foul play.
LarryBoy nodded wisely. Archibald waited, knowing the question would come.
Who is foul play?
Asked LarryBoy.
Perhaps if you would pay more attention in class,
Said Archibald.
you would know that foul play isn't a person. It means an evil plot.
I knew that.
Said Larry, disappearing behind the screen again.
Chef Croswell thinks that a supervillain might be attacking Bumbleberg.
Archibald went on.
It could be another one of Awful Alvin's schemes, or even Plum Loco.
Or maybe that Ice Cube guy that they were talking about at the Daily Bumble.
Suggested Larry.
Iceberg.
Corrected Archibald.
Maybe.
It doesn't matter, said Larry. None of them is a match for...
LarryBoy jumped out from behind the screen in full uniform.
LarryBoy!
He announced.
Exactly,
Said Archibald.
and except for the fact that you put your uniform on over your pajamas, you're all set to go.
Right, said LarryBoy, disappearing behind the screen again. Stay tuned here to find out what happens to Bumbleberg and to see if LarryBoy saves the day.